in the Time Lord's capital is called the Panopticon. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I haven't been back there in quite a while. I studied on Gallifrey, but I've not been back in about 500 years because the trains to get there are really expensive. And Marina Shut Up stopped by to say hello as well. Hi Marina, love your videos. Everyone go and check out Marina's channel, it's good. Then we talked about law and order and how laws are designed. And Stephen Peterson said that maybe a good test for a law is, would any reasonable person think this is okay? So like, maybe we want to decide what the speed limit is going to be in this particular area. Would every reasonable person say that 30 is enough? That's a nice idea, and there are certainly versions of ideas like that in the philosophy of law. My big question though would be, reasonable to what end? If everybody shares the same goal, then we could probably agree on what's reasonable. But say I don't really care about traffic accidents or safety and I just want to get to where I'm going as fast as possible. I might think that 30 is not a reasonable idea, or not reasonable to me. And that's the thing, is that depending on what people value or what their end goal is, different things can seem reasonable in order to get there. Now that example with the speed limits is quite a crude idea, but you can see how issues like that, people thinking very different things are reasonable depending on their values, might come up a lot if we're deciding things like tax law or pollution guidelines and environmental rules, stuff like that. Unbannable Names said that they would quite like to see a video on terrorism. You are not the only person who has requested that. I would like to do a video on terrorism. I think, particularly given recent events, it's quite relevant, and it is something I've studied, so I could talk about it. This book, Louise Richardson's What Terrorists Want, would form a good basis of it. Yeah, I'm not going to rule it out. I think that probably has a reasonably high chance of occurring at some stage. But obviously I want to make sure that I do it right and do it justice and do it well and really read into it. So yeah, watch this space. Run It's the Cat said that in a democracy, the laws are changed by popular vote. That's the ideal, of course, but that's not really how things tend to work in practice, is it? Certainly in my country and in the USA, the laws are not made by popular vote. The power to make laws is granted by popular vote. And we hope and we try to take precautions to ensure that that election process to elect representatives who will then make the law is as fair and representative as possible. But even then, you know, there's different ways of counting votes and so on, different like proportional representation versus the electoral system we have in the UK. It's a little more complex than that. Even in the case of something like a referendum, like we had a referendum on the Brexit vote, so is that the decision being made by popular law? Yeah, kind of yes and no, because we ended up as a nation voting to leave the EU, but the exact details of how that will work, the actual laws that will be passed to sever that ties and make the deals that will go across it and so on, that won't be voted on. That will in fact be negotiated by, well, check back with me after I know the election results and we'll find out who it's going to be done by. But do you see what I mean? Democracy doesn't necessarily mean that the laws are controlled by popular vote. In fact, often in very important cases, they're not. And hey, normally I thank my top patrons in these videos, the people who've helped me pay my rent and make the show and afford food over the last month, and I'm going to do it in a bit of a different way this time. I'm going to do the ContraPoints H Bomber Guy method of putting in some joke credits. So without further ado, I now present this month's credits. Thank you to everyone who donated this month. If you'd like to help me make the show, you can do it at patreon.com/philosophytube. And don't forget to subscribe.